Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are experienced investors with a huge advantage as we have been able to learn from our family that has well over 100 years of experience in real estate and other alternative investments. Here on Master Your Millions, we seek to share that experience that we've learned and expand our knowledge as we speak to the top leaders in alternative areas of investing. And today we are so excited for our guest. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Well, we have a man by the name of Doug Sandler, and that may not ring a bell with many people. However, they will remember the Sandler sales method. And yes, this is the son of Dave Sandler that we have with us. You know, he hasn't been in sales all his life, yet he has been in sales all his life. For a very long time, he was a DJ in the Washington, D.C. area doing live events for kind of an upper crust type of people. And then he decided to author a book. Then he made another turn. He's made several turns where he's now has a podcast, Nice Guys Finished. What was the name again? Nice Guys.
That's all right. That's all right. You're just confusing two things. My book is called Nice Guys Finish First, and the podcast is called The Nice Guys on Business.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Okay, so welcome, Doug. We're really pleased to have you with us today.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate you having me on the show. And it's always nice to be able to be introduced and have that idea that Dave Sandler was an integral part of my life. As my dad, of course, he was an integral part of my life. But it was great lessons that I've learned, and I'm happy to share either some of those lessons or talk about something completely different. I'll go in whatever direction. I'll follow you guys wherever you take me.
Well, we appreciate that. Well, we are very interested in finding out a little bit about your journey, and in particular, how customer service / sales has been an integral part of your journey, and then also how you came into the podcasting space and how podcasting and customer service can catapult any business in the world. We'd like to know some of your gems and things like that. So give us a little overview. I know that was really
a lot to unpack. Lot to unpack there. I'll start in any avenue that you want. I was born in 1964, and I'll advance it really quickly. The first 31 years of my life, I spent in the living room, dining room, kitchen, on his boat, in his car, learning, living, eating, breathing, sleeping, the psychology of Dave Sandler, my dad. And what was really cool about that, and I was very proud of my dad as much as he accomplished as a business guy, very proud of him for that. You can't help but learn through osmosis when you're around the guy for 31 years, as I was, learning all about, it's not about the products and services or the features and benefits of your product. It's how they actually, help solve a problem in the world of your prospect or your customer. So for me, I kind of put my whole shift on, I don't want to talk about features and benefits of my product. I mean, features, who cares about the features? Who cares about the benefits? The biggest thing to know is, does it solve a problem that the person that's across the table from you have? And if you can solve that problem, then it doesn't matter what you're selling, and it doesn't even matter how much you're charging, because they'll pay it if it solves a pain that they have. And so for 31 years of my life, that was ingrained in my brain. And if you do that with the notion of delivering, over exceeding expectations, over delivering in customer service, over communicating, building the relationship with the person, again, it doesn't matter how much you charge and how many other things that it does that they don't need. You don't need to share those, because who cares? It doesn't solve a problem that they have. So for me, I learned that for many, many years, several decades of my life, and then just have used those lessons that I've learned for my entire life and my entire career. No matter what I've done, it's helped me.
So tell me a little bit how, when you're in this space and you're talking about solving someone's pain, how do you go about identifying that pain and really zeroing in on exactly what the pain is, so you know exactly what you're solving, so you can I don't know if you market to that or sell to that pain, help them understand that.
Right.
How do
right.
you figure that out? Because really, that's a secret, that when you can identify a pain that a lot of people have, and you solve that, you can do quite a bit of business.
So let me back up and just say, give you the answer, but in an indirect way. I think when we are salespeople for the products or services that we have in our life, whatever it is that you do, whether you're in real estate or selling financial services or selling insurance or selling a plumbing service, doesn't matter what you do. What happens is when you're a salesperson talking to a prospect, you're doing this thing called the salesperson-prospect dance. Right. So my job as the salesperson in this old school environment is to share with you things and ask you questions that will get to uncover the problem that you have in your life. The challenge with that is when you do that as a salesperson, you being a prospect, the questions that I ask are going to be responded to by a guarded answer. So if I ask you as a plumber, hey, what's the problem that you're having in your house right now? You may tell me the problem, but you're going to kind of guard yourself, because the challenge is that if I tell you as the salesperson something that you have a solution to, you're going to try to sell me into whatever it is that you do. And the problem there is that now you discover a vulnerability. And people don't want to be vulnerable. They never want to be vulnerable. They just want to have a conversation with somebody. Instead of doing the salesperson prospect dance, what I want you to do is build a relationship with a customer to the point where you're asking questions, but you're not a salesperson. You're more of a consultant. You're more of a, let me talk to you as a friend. If this was me, here's how I would handle it. Or in this same environment, this is what I'm thinking I would be doing. Or how does that affect your life right now? How is the fact that you don't have any water affecting your family? You know, the fact that their water is off isn't really the problem. The fact that they can't brush their teeth and they can't leave their house and they can't wash their hair and they look ugly because they can't get themselves all made up. That's the problem. And so you as a salesperson have to take that problem away from them by saying things like, if there was something else, that would be a problem, because that can't be how big a problem is that in your life right now? The fact that you can't brush your teeth, is that, and you're saying this gently, stroking them, understanding that this could be a big problem, but you want to find out the other 7 problems when you want to really get to the underlying problem of it. So for me, when I start to hear people doing the salesperson prospect dance, like, hey, look, do you have a solution for my water being off? Do I have a solution? And I start to go into every solution that customer, what we'll do is we'll not only give you water, but we'll filter your water and we'll make sure that your water is hot and we'll make sure that your water it tastes good. And I mean, I'm not looking for that. I'm just looking to understand how I can wash my hair. So I know that was a long way to answer the question, but the actual reality of it is, if you're doing the salesperson prospect dance, you're coming into the equation at the wrong part. You're trying to solve the wrong problem. What I want to do is I want to avoid that entire salesperson prospect dance. I want to be more of a consultant, and I want to help somebody arrive at the solution so that they understand why they're arriving at it. And they're actually helping me arrive at the solution as a partner of mine, rather than a salesperson selling a water softener or a plumbing service to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking a little bit about the hero's journey. Are you familiar with that? I think it's Donald Miller's book.
Sure. It could be the hero's journey, but that's just one small segment of the entire process. Here is just, hey, I'm going to help you solve your problem. That's part of the hero's journey. The entire hero's journey is a much longer schedule or scale or pathway that you're taking from problem recognition to problem solution.
One of the things I need to pull out and bring it back is you talk about becoming a friend. You talk about like counseling rather than selling. How do you switch that seat for people? Because that's one of the things I see a lot of people struggle with. I've been in sales for 12 years now, for a long time. And so it comes naturally to me, although for those starting their journey, that is not the case at all. So
yeah,
what would be maybe a pointer to help them switch switch seats, essentially, to put them on the same side of the table as the customer versus sitting across trying to negotiate?
Great question. As a matter of fact, I just had a coaching call with one of my clients yesterday who has been an engineer his entire life. And you know how hard it is for engineers to start selling, because engineers want to talk about all of the things that their product or service can do if they own a business. And sometimes they forget, now that they're making this transition into, I own my own business, I now have to sell these things that I know so much about. I don't want you to puke product. So I always tell them, hey, first of all, understand, don't puke product, because people don't, while you have the greatest passion in what you do, I'm going to say this gently to everybody that's in your audience right now, people do not care what you do. They don't care about you. They only care about the problems that they're having and how to solve them, which is why you're in front of them to begin with. So the two things that you can do as a salesperson that you can't, that you should be doing as a salesperson consultancy instead of just a salesperson prospect dance, is number one, always ask permission. Hey, can I tell you, Scott, can I tell you something? If it's okay with you, can I ask your permission to share a little bit about whatever problem that you're having? So about how you're not able to wash your hair. Can I share something with you that I think would be relevant in this particular case? Always asking their permission. That puts you guys, now you're no longer on top of that person and they're down here. You're now elevating that person. So you're now asking permission. So that actually puts to the prospect you at a position where you're actually asking them permission. So you actually are lower than them when it comes to the psychology of selling. That's always a good thing. The other thing that you want to do is, can you help me? Whenever you ask somebody for help, what generally is going to be their response to you?
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to help you. Great. Help me understand this a little bit more. So your water is off. So help me understand, like, what happens? And I'm coming at this as a broadcaster right now. So it's really hard to kind of, you're lowering your voice. You're taking a slower, lower stance. You're talking to them from a perspective of, you're asking permission, which is great, subservient. You're also asking them for if you could help them, because I want to understand this a little bit more. I have to understand where this affects your life. And you're not asking that in a challenging way. You're asking that from a curiosity perspective. So permission and help are two things that, as a salesperson, you're going to win the day and win the relationship by asking help and permission.
And I should add as well, as when you sit on that other side of the table, you truly become a not just a counselor, but a friend. And if you do it well enough where they can hear that you're listening, they will come back.
Agree.
It's not so much of a sale all of a sudden. It's just like, this is what it is.
Well, whenever, and think about the last time that you ever had an opportunity to be pitched something, and somebody all of a sudden, especially in, let's say, technology wise, somebody shares their screen, they start showing you a slide deck, and they start to show you a presentation. I'm not saying, if you're using a presentation, I'm not saying that there's not a time and a place for that. There may be a time and a place if you need to show illustrations and do that kind of thing. But in the sales game, when you start to show a slide deck, that means you are scripted. The challenge is that we have a script, the prospect doesn't. And when the prospect says something that we don't expect the prospect to say, or we don't really know how to handle it because it's not on one of our slides, we get all discombobulated with how we're going to now change what we're saying to fit into if you say on one of your slides, here are the 17 colors that your product comes in, and they're like, oh, I was hoping it only came in red. Now what do? Now we have 17 products, and we got one of them is red, but he was hoping it was exclusively in red. It's sometimes not even a problem that you need to address, because if you don't have a slide, it's not an issue that you need to address. So the biggest challenge oftentimes is exactly what you said, Scott. You need to build the relationship. You need to be the friend. You need to be sitting across from somebody where being a consultant is a much easier game than being a salesperson, because they are looking for you, to you for help.
One of the things we talk a lot, did you have another question, Scott?
No, go ahead. You're doing good.
Yeah, no, one of the things we talk about on our podcast often when we're interviewing people is to find out a little bit their perspective when it comes to team, and mentors is one, and also other team members in their journey to success. You've had a reasonable amount of success in your lifetime, Doug. What can you name a couple of people that have been integral? We've already mentioned your dad as a mentor, but some other people that have been integral, that have been part of your team, and how did you find them? And what parts do they play, et cetera?
I think you learn lessons from everybody that comes into your life, good, bad, or indifferent. You learn these lessons, and one of the things that I learned from my current partner, Strickland, with our production business over the last 8 years, and we discovered this together, but I don't know that I would have discovered it had it not been for Strickland, because we had done so many things. I don't want to say wrong in the beginning of running our production business, but 8 years ago when we started this, we would be doing everything. I would do the accounting within the business. I would do the bookkeeping. I would do the spreadsheets and the process improvement and the customer service and the product delivery and all of the things. And it took us about 2 or 3 years to discover that we were working 70, 80 hours a week in addition to a full-time job, 70, 80 hours a week doing this other thing, this podcast production business. And we weren't making a lot of money. And when we discovered that, hey, look, and we discovered this in probably 2019 when we said this to each other, let's only do the things that we know that we are good at. So let's stay in our zone of genius. Let's only do the things that we are good at, and let's hire out the rest of the things. And the first thing I thought is, how am I going to do that? I got to spend money on something that we don't have enough income coming in the door to have a director of operations or have an editing team or a production staff or a marketing team. How do we do that? And we said, how can we not do that? We're working all of these hours, not making enough money, and we're not happy, which was really the bottom line of it. I was working all those hours and I was miserable and making money, but not enough money. So when we started to hire out, so the biggest lesson, I guess, to answer your question, is staying in the zone of genius since 2019. So for the last 4 years, staying in our zone of genius and only doing the things that we are good at, hiring out the rest. I work now a fraction of the hours. And when I say a fraction, probably 10% of the hours that I used to work, and probably make 10 times the money that I was making before when I was doing all of this extra work. Because not only was I not good at doing the job, but I was miserable at the same time, which made the part that I really enjoyed doing still a drudgery to do, because I was so tired from doing all of these other things. So I would say that my partner Strickland was definitely a mentor in helping find the catalyst for those things that I, should be doing, which would be that staying in your zone of genius.
So talk to us more about your podcasting business. You have Nice Guys in Business, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And I read somewhere 1,000 episodes. I remember how many have you had so far?
Yeah, we've had we're almost at 1,400 episodes since February of 2015 when we launched the show. I launched the show as a result of wanting to promote a book that I had just written called Nice Guys Finish First. And what was nice about it was it did give me an avenue to promote the book. What ended up really happening was somebody in our audience I would say about 2 years into our production of Nice Guys Finish, Nice Guys on Business. A guy named Lou came out from our audience and said, "Hey, I want to do this. Can you teach me how to launch a podcast? Because I have no idea." And I said, "I don't know how to launch a podcast. I mean, I could teach you what I've done, but I don't even know how I would charge you for it." So I was looking for the opportunity in there. And he said, "Well, here's how much I think I could budget for this. This is the amount of time I can dedicate to this. Can you teach me for this amount of money over this period of time to do that?" And I said, "Sure, let's give it a try." That was the first of all, probably 305, 310 clients. And it's been a great, great journey. The transition from my full-time job to my podcast business was about a 3-year journey. But it's been a wonderful experience. In the last 5 years, I've been doing this almost exclusively full-time. And, we have probably at any given point 50 clients that we produce their shows, and we teach people the side of podcasting that many people don't understand. Most people look at it as I'm going to start a podcast, kind of like the Joe Rogan idea. Have a podcast, find a whole bunch of sponsors, live on the beach. and Tim Ferriss, same idea. Have a podcast, great content, build a community, or continue building a community, sell advertising and sponsorship. The reality of it is that normal people like you and me, we're not ever going to make our living at sponsors and advertisers. It's just not going to happen. So we have to look at it creatively. And I would say about 2.5 years into this, when Lou came along, we realized that maybe the dollars don't come out of the audience. Maybe the dollars come out of the guest seat. So putting people that are highly qualified prospects into our guest seat, building the relationship with them, going back to the earlier part of our talk, building the relationship with them, solving a problem that they have, and putting them into the services that we have, regardless of whether you're a podcast producer, financial planner, attorney, accountant, whatever business that you do, you have prospects for what you do. So why not put those people that are potentially clients, potentially referral sources, potentially affiliate providers, so they have a product that complements, doesn't compete with you, into the guest seat. And that's how we've made our living, and very, very good living over the last 5 years of using this particular strategy and process.
That's awesome. I know a lot of listeners are going to wonder, because they always do, because they start at the beginning and they full of emotions. Am I going to fail? What's going to happen? So talk to us a little bit about that transition from going from W-2 to self-employed, because usually that's where all the emotions flare up for people.
Yeah. Well, in my particular case, I was going from one corporation that I owned to another corporation. So I didn't quite have to take the W-2 to 1099 step. But at the same time, I have had to take that step in my life. So it's completely relatable, no matter what industry you're going from. I never encourage people to just jump. You've got to 100% be committed to whatever it is that is your new project, your passion project, your self-employment project, whatever it is that you want to call it. Without that passion, you're going to run dry, no matter how much you're spinning your wheels. Because the concern is that, let's say that you're making $60,000 a year as a W-2 employee, and you're making, $5,000 on your side hustle doing this 1099 thing. The concern is, how are you ever going to turn it into $5,000? So here's what I encourage and I challenge people to do. Put yourself in a position where you're making the same amount as a side hustle as you are making for your regular business. So now you have a decision to make. It's, do I want to continue? Can I possibly continue at this pace? Or do I want to take it easy on this regular gig where I'm selling my time wholesale to an employer and they're selling it retail to the world, and I'm getting a W-2, which is great. It's safe, but I'm not really my own person here. So, get to the point where you're making about the same or about what you're making at your full-time gig before you take your foot off of first base to head over to second base. If you do that, and I'm ultra conservative, and if you do that, you'll be able to do it successfully. It's that the challenge is the people that say, I'm making $5,000 a year at this side hustle, I'm making $60,000 on my other thing. It's close enough. Let's just go. I'm just going to go. And that puts you, and the problem with that is, as you know, Scott, it puts you in a desperate position. Now you need to make the sale. I never want to have to make the sale in order to pay my mortgage payment, to pay my car payment, to pay my, my tax bill. I never want to have to need to make the sale to do that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So tell us about, you've been through a couple of businesses. I can hear the ups and downs. What would you say has been one of your biggest failures?
Wow. Okay. I would say my biggest failure outside of it's related to business, but it's not really business. I dedicated so much of my life to the business that I was in, my DJ business, that I wrecked a marriage. I spent 20 years building a marriage with a woman who helped me build this business, also my DJ business. And I missed the first probably 15 years of both of my kids' lives. And the challenge with that is I thought I was doing the right thing by serving my family. And I really wasn't serving my family. I was serving this ego that said, I want to make more money. I want to be more successful. I want to have more. I want to do more. I want to be more. All they wanted was a dad and a husband, and the challenge with that is so many people probably listening to your show right now that listen to my show all the time, they're in a position where you'll never get to your deathbed saying, I wish I spent another day at the office. And so when you do things like understand, it took me 55 years to realize that I've only really want to work in the things that I enjoy doing. I only want to work with the people that I enjoy working with. I only want to do the things that I enjoy doing. When you start to realize how important that really is in your life, then you'll become successful no matter what you do and who you're doing it with. So the biggest failure that I had, while it is not the business, it's related to the business in that struggle with my first marriage.
That was pretty raw. I mean, and right bearing your soul. Thanks, Doug. Not a lot of people would actually say that.
Wow. I mean, come on. If there's somebody in your audience that could benefit, if you can hear 5 minutes of my conversation and say, oh, okay, I won't spend another day at the office. I'll value my family. If that's the only thing that you need, you've got to get on the track to fix whatever it is that's, when I lost my job in the early 90s, I remember, and this was just married, I remember my dad said to me, you need to make it a full-time job to find a job. And if you're leaving your house at 9 and you're coming back at 10 and you're kicking the can down the street and you're like, hey, I tried, I'm not finding a job, you're not really spending full-time effort doing it. So if there's a possibility that one person in your audience can benefit from you'll never wish you spent another day at the office on your deathbed philosophy, then great. So I appreciate you sharing that. I don't really feel like it's raw. I've told this story so many times because it's just the reality of life. It's like, hey, who hasn't screwed up in their life a few times? And that was a big one for me. Fortunately, I'm still friends with my ex, and I still have 2 great relationships. I have relationships with both of my kids. That's awesome. And I have hopefully been forgiven, but at the same time, I have made I've tried to reconcile with the things that I've done wrong, and I think that's a good thing too.
Well, and tell me if this is a little bit too personal, but if you were to go back and you're sitting with what you know now, what kind of constraints, or what would you say to yourself, being like, hey, 4 o'clock hits, you need to be done. I don't care what you're doing. Like, what kind of restraints or goals or certain rules would you put in place so that it would have went better, so that you are focused on the right things?
Well, if I knew back in 2010 what I learned in 2019, so there was a 9-year gap that I hadn't learned this lesson still, even after it all went down. And the lesson is just spend time doing what you love doing, and stop doing the busy work, and stop staying busy. Work more on your personal self. If you can work on your personal self and you can overcome the emotional issues that you have in life, all of the other things fall into play really nicely. Your business all of a sudden gets to be successful when you kind of collect and you learn who you are. Self-discovery is an amazing thing. Why it took me until 50 to realize who I was and what I really wanted out of life. Like, I don't care how much money I make anymore. I just want to enjoy what I'm doing. Fortunately, when you love doing what you do, the money comes. So for me, that was a valuable lesson. And if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would set some pretty clear-cut boundaries on what I love doing and what I don't love doing, and how much time I was going to spend with my family, and how much time, effort, and energy I was going to put into my relationship with my wife. Look, marriage is not easy. I mean, if you've been married for any length of time, you know that it's not easy. Why people think they shouldn't have to work at their marriage? We spend more time trying to figure out how to charge our cell phone than we do how to charge up our marriage. And for me, that would be a valuable thing to go back and do over again if I needed to do it again, or had the opportunity to do it again.
What triggered this lesson in 2019?
I was tired.
One morning? You were tired.
You're tired. You're tired when you work as many hours as you work, and when you are like, hey, I have a good chunk of money in the bank. Why am I not happy? You guys are directly in the money business, And you could probably point on, out 10 examples of people that have beaucoup money, millions, if not billions of dollars, that aren't happy people. So can we just get over the fact that more money does not make you a happier person? Well, what is it then that makes you happy? Understanding who you are, the relationships. You only have who you are and the relationships that you've built in your life. That's all you. And if you're not happy with the relationships you have in your life, and you're not happy with you're not going to be happy if you have a jet or not, so focus on the things. So for me, that's where it all came from.
That was way cool how you did that. Our podcast is all about amassing millions, enjoying the millions, and passing them on to the future generation. And so you have spoken so eloquently about how to enjoy the millions. How much is enough? That is the question that many people need to grapple with and come to realization. It doesn't matter a certain level, I guess, doesn't matter anymore. It's all about what you enjoy and who you are and what you want to do. I really appreciate it. That's good for me personally, and hopefully it'll be good for some of our
I was going to say, we've had this conversation. It's not just for our listeners. It's a question that we're constantly thinking about. What is enough? And something that a lot of times, and especially Jason, helps is like keeping that end in mind. Like, what is it all for? What is it you're headed towards? And can you bake together a plan so that you can get there faster? There's certain things you have to have. You have to have food. You have to have shelter. You have to have enough money that you feel like, if I had a bad month, I'm okay, reserves. Right. And that's something even you brought up. And that's the whole point on why we teach the infinite banking concept. Wouldn't you say, Jason?
Yes. It's largely to enjoy that during your lifetime and then also have the opportunity to pass it on to the next generation. On a scale from 1 to 5, Doug, what would you say your understanding of the infinite banking concept is?
0. Can I go less than 1? I don't know the concept at all. I know you guys. I've been fortunate enough to learn a little bit from you guys, but I don't know much about it at all. But who wouldn't want to have an environment where not only do you get to do what you want and live a good life, but you get to leave that to the people that come behind you, to your kids?
Yeah, it fits really well with a lot of people like yourself that enjoy having control. I mean, this 2019 event, if you will, I don't know if it was a single event, but you're awakening, if you will. What you start to do is awakening to, look, I am my own person and I can choose. I can choose not to do the accounting. I can choose not to do that part. I'm going to hire out my weaknesses. I'm going to only do the things that I enjoy. And at the heart of the infinite banking concept is all about control over your personal finances. And part of that is having some self-control, if you will, to be able to do that. Everybody's going to have a certain level of self-control of decisions and sticking by those decisions and having commitment to something. That is exactly, I would say, at the heart of the infinite banking concept. So how did you first hear about it? Do you remember? When you say 0, though, you've heard of it.
I have heard about it. I maybe didn't understand it, that when somebody was kind of waving the is the acronym IBC? Is that what the acronym is? Okay, so when somebody was waving the IBC flag, I wasn't aware that was that I thought that might have been just a unique thing that this person had to offer, but I didn't realize that it was a philosophy until I think you guys probably came along in my life, 6 months or a year ago. I probably didn't know much about it. I've listened to some of the episodes that we produce for you, so I get to hear a little bit more about it. I dive in a little bit every episode that I can, but I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently about it. If somebody said, "What do you know about IBC?" I would tell you I know nothing about it. I would say, call my buddies Jason and Scott. They'll tell you anything that you need to know about it.
Well, go ahead, Scott.
A lot of people have that, and literally in its essence, and something that we talk about over and over, not always on the podcast, it's a generator. You've got your reserves. For example, we'll talk about that. You've got your reserves. Let's put it in a place where it can't be touched. If you get have a lawsuit, let's put it in a place that's going to make 10 times what the bank's going to pay you, right? And give you control to do whatever you need with it. And so literally, it's like doing the same work. That's what I'm all about, doing the same work am making more. And that's what it is in its essence.
Well, it sounds like it's having your money work smarter for you than the traditional means. I mean, the traditional means is put it in a bank account, put it in a fund, put it in a stock, put it into something, get your 7 to 10%. If you're lucky enough to get 7 to 10%, and oftentimes that's where most people get stuck, right?
Well, yeah, and we're still saying do that. We're saying just route it through something else first. Wouldn't you say, Jason?
Yeah, it's kind of like water through a dam, right? The river's the river before the dam, the river's the river after the dam. However, when it goes through the dam and through a hydroelectric generator, it produces a separate benefit that is very valuable. And that's simply what this has the potential to do. There's been some bad press about it recently. There's a memo that came out from one of the large insurance companies talking about it. There are people out there that are teaching it wrong. They're out there making wild, outlandish claims. And let's be clear, folks, this isn't a get-rich scheme. It's not something that's overnight. It's something that has, a couple hundred years of experience. It's tried and true. However, there's no shortcuts. You've got to go all the way through it and stick with the system. And I think that's what, before the show, when we were talking with you, Doug, you said something about the customer service. I don't remember what it was. It applies to any business, right? You give them what they want. Remind me what we were saying there. You could sort of bring it in better probably than I can.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, success leaves clues. So the clues that I learned through many of the businesses that I ran is as long as I would return my communication, so return my emails or phone calls, tell the truth and be a nice guy, that applies to any business that I'm in. So I'm assuming in your particular case, it doesn't matter how you make your money, it's what you do with your money that after you make it that really counts. So your advice probably falls in line with something like that. So for me, you could do any business and take the strategies and the philosophies that I've created through my programs. Be a nice guy, tell the truth, and return your phone calls. I mean, who wouldn't want somebody that does those three things in their life as a service provider?
Cool. And similar concepts here with the infinite banking concept about simply doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done.
Right.
It's not return phone calls 2 weeks later. It's return phone calls right away and treat people the way you want to be treated.
It's discipline. It's discipline. And I know there's a lot of people that look at the word budget and they look at it and it's a 4-letter word, right? It's like they get afraid. And I look at it and I say, hey, look, it's just the guardrails for me. It gives me the opportunity to understand. I know I have $300 a month that's going to go into my entertainment account. I know I have, $3,000 that's going to go to my mortgage. I know that I have $100 a month that's going to go to auto insurance. And those are my budget items. And yeah, there's got to be a budget for entertainment. So if you put $100 in that budget, but you routinely are spending $1,000 every month, you're going to be hitting yourself over the head with a hammer because I'm $900 over budget. I'm not saying that you have to stay within the budget every month, but I'm saying if you have the guardrails up, doesn't it make it easier? I think that the knowledge of having a budget is power. And some people look at it and say that the budget is restriction. And I don't look at it that way at all. I think the budget is freedom. It gives me the ability. If I don't spend $300 a month in that category, I now have $200 I have left over from last month. I can put it into something else, or better yet, I could save it. How cool is that?
Yeah, I like that. So let's imagine for a minute that we're going to make an appointment right now to bring you back to be a guest on the podcast in 2 years or 5 years. And at the beginning of that podcast, Scott, in his introduction or in my introduction, are going to be able to say blank about what you have done during those 2 years. What would you fill in that blank that you would like to be able to accomplish in that time frame? And with glee and excitement and beating your chest, whatever you want to say, come back on the podcast and say, Jason and Scott, I did it, and this is how I did it. We don't need to know the how, but this is what I did. Where are you going to be?
I love it. I love it. So right now, let's say that I put 20 hours a week into my full-time business, which is about what I put into my full-time business. And let's say that I set a goal today. I'm going to figure out how to get that down to 5 hours a week, but make 3 times more than I'm making right now. So for me, that would be giving me a healthier, better lifestyle, let's call it, but doing less work. I don't think that more work equates to more success. I don't think it does in any business that you do. I don't think there's a single business that if I work harder, I'm going to make more money has to apply. I think if I work smarter, I can make more money, can apply to pretty much any business. So in 2 years, 3 years, whenever it is that we do this again, my goal of I want to work 5 hours a week, but make 3 times more than I'm making right now. I would love that to be a reality. And it's just a matter of time, and we can make that happen.
And how do you feel about us keeping you accountable to that goal?
That would be terrific.
It's too late. We already are. It's way too late. We've got a bunch of people who are listening and are going to keep you accountable.
I love it. That is actually a really cool goal and very precise. I love that. People are going to want to get a hold of you, Doug. We're going to, everyone, put in our show notes down below a way to get a hold of him and his production company. It sort of came out during this interview. However, I want to say it clearly. Doug is our consultant and helps us produce this show. So Master Your Millions is a raving success because of Doug and his team. So we'll put some contact information down in the show notes. Is there anything in parting that, Doug, you want to leave with our listeners? You've already spent some amazing gems throughout the whole thing. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I would just tell people life is way too short to do stuff that they don't like doing. Start doing stuff that you do like doing, and certainly connect with Scott and Jason, because it sounds like they got their hands on a process and a program and a concept that would be able to work for anyone that is willing to follow some guidelines. Why not follow the guidelines? Why not? They've obviously laid the example ahead for you to be able to see. So I wish you guys a ton of success, and I appreciate you having me on your show to share what we do and what I do here at Turnkey.
Of course.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We always have fun, and we need to talk to you a bit more, Doug. Not enough communication.
I agree.
Anyway,
you guys are hard to get to. You know that, right? Because you're busy guys, and the struggle is actually getting on your schedule. If anybody's in the audience and they want to get a hold of Scott and Jason, call, but be patient because they have a lot of people that they serve.
This is true. We're working. Your goal is something that's on our table right now, and it's something that we are currently working on. Nice. So we will get to you, and that is true. We will get to you. Just be patient. It might take a day or two. Anyway, guys, thanks for connecting. Thanks for listening. We always enjoy these conversations, and I hope you do too. So if you'd like to connect with Jason or I, make sure to hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or shoot us an email. All the links are down below. And remember, we will also put Doug's links down below if you want to connect with him. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe and give us a 5-star review if you like the show. You have no idea how much it helps us. And last, remember, mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.